Welcome to the node.js Node API team meeting for July 16th, 2021. We'll follow our standard approach at looking at the things we've tagged for milestone 11. Before we do that, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? If not, let's move on to the issues which are tagged. The first one is the stale issues in Node add-on API. And actually, let me share the screen before I forget. So stale issues, can take a look. I know I haven't added anything.
Yes, I added one.
I see you added a couple. Go ahead.
This last one here from 2 days ago.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure the current status on this one.
So I don't know who's okay, right.
I think we had asked for his node version in order to get some more info, but then it kind of died.
Right. Okay, so that one's worth having be on our non-stale list. I assume you removed the stale tag as well, did you? Or
I did not. I guess no.
Okay.
Can you remove it? Thank you.
Yeah, let me do that. This error from which location? So what's it?
Okay, so it's on Windows and the
Yeah, so the question would be, yeah, is it an issue related to?
it seems that it's in 0MQ native module. Is it right?
Let's see. Where were you looking at that from? Oh, yes. Okay,
yeah.
so here.
Is there any link at their issues here?
This one right here.
Oh, it's open, and it's on Raspberry Pi.
That's what this one in particular says. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although this one seems to be semi-related only. Because it says this issue says when they build ZMQ with address sanitizer, national debugger. Because this one might be, what's address sanitizer? Yeah, so that would seem to be a Windows related thing.
But I don't understand if they already solved the problem or not.
I don't think so, because he complained about the being tagged as stale, all right?
Right.
So I expect if it was closed, it would have been like, yeah, it's closed, it's already resolved, so no problem, right?
Yeah.
But there seems to be some merged change there that addresses a use after free, so that might have solved it for them, right? I don't know if yeah. So yeah, if yeah, here there's like a merged change on 0MQ.
Which one was that? You're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah,
This
right
one?
there. Yeah, the
that,
purple
yeah.
one.
And that was not a good cut paste. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
Somehow, but does that sound like a reasonable comment?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll see what they say after that. Okay, so that was 965, which we just looked at, right? And then we had 912, which I see. So I guess, Lucian, you're still looking at it, right?
Yeah, I still didn't have a chance to look at it.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so that's the stale issues. Modules that are ported, I don't think nothing recent there. I haven't enabled debug testing for add-ons. Creating the matrix of tested add-ons. This might be a good place just to ask, Jack and Deepak, how things are going on that front in terms of adding new tests, if there's any blockers or questions, that kind of stuff.
Yes. Oh, sorry, you go first. I was working on other issue that you pointed out. The single test that Kevin created.
Yeah, so I think it may be better for Jack to talk about that one first, and then we can go to Deepak's issue.
Okay.
Okay. So which ones?
I can give you the issue number. It was created by Kevin. 1 second.
Yeah, his is his issue on Node add-on API.
Okay. Jack's, or which one should we discuss
Deepak.
first? Is the
I think we should discuss Jack's first because it's on
Okay.
this page here.
right? Which one is that one?
That was the test the modules, the one that you were just looking at, tracking or no, like were we not just on
This one, sorry, I was on, let me go back to
like the testing matrix? Yeah.
this one.
Yeah,
Okay.
because Jack is primarily working on increasing test coverage.
Yeah. Okay.
So Jack, do you have an update?
I haven't been able to like really work on it because of midterms and stuff, but I think for like in terms of like the existing coverage, I think we have most of the matrix filled out. I think there's a few like functions that I need to look over, but yeah, I'll probably get on this weekend because I'll just finish my midterms.
Okay, that sounds good. So in terms of, is this now, is it this issue that has the matrix, or is there another one that has the?
It was like, I think we decided to go with like issues, like it's I tagged them under issues. It's like I tagged like tagged under testing. If you go to node add-on issues, if you have issues.
Yeah, we splitted the issue per types that we need
Right.
need to cover. So I saw that Jack closed the symbol. And then I don't know what next.
Okay, so basically, if we close all of these, then we've got coverage for everything. Is that
Yeah.
okay? Okay. Okay.
So then while
go
we're
ahead.
here, Deepak's issue, I think, is near the top.
Okay.
When developing,
Right.
yes,
Okay.
that one.
Yep.
Mhm. So this is just describing, like when we're locally developing and we're changing something, we usually have to rebuild everything. And it's a problem if when we want to do rapid development.
Yeah, I know the thing I'm debugging right now, I'm like editing the index quite a lot, and yeah.
I can share my screen and show where I am. I just worked on a couple of
Sure.
hours on this.
I will stop share and let you take over there for a minute.
Okay, thank you. Here I am. So this is what I was working on. Yeah, I hooked in a a script for I called it as unit, right? So we can just do a run npm run unit and do a filter with a filter condition, something like this, right? Look at the terminal. If you're able to look at the terminal, it will be something like this, right? Unit and then filter and then say name.cc, right? Something like that. Which file we want to run, right? There's a way of, once you pass in the parameter in npm script, you have a way of getting that into the as a variable, as a argumenter. So you can take that as an argument and pass into your test. And I propose creating a separate unit test folder because this we have to just like your test, we can create a unit, have a unit test folder under which we can have a another binding.gyp. This is needed because the original binding.gyp is having all the other sources. So we'll have a binding.gyp into which we can plug in the so there is an index.js under that unit test, which can which can get the passed in arguments, right? It can type in the passed in arguments. It can get all parse the passed in arguments, and then we can spawn a node.gyp rebuild from there with the in that current folder with all the files that we have to it, right? I have the sources hard coded here, but I was trying to get in the the argument that we passed from the script here, the filter argument, the filter argument for that particular running that one particular file. I was trying to bring in here. So I'm still working on that. So if I am able to bring that here, it obviously comes here as a in the process.argv as an argument. If I'm able to pass into the node.gyp here and then get it into the binding.gyp, the thing is that the variable expansion, I'm still tweaking the variable expansion in process.gyp, binding.gyp. So if I'm able to bring it here, hook it in here, then this becomes a template into which we can inject the file names that we want to run, and then we can run it from here. The only thing is, like, we have to prepend the folder, the actual test folder, relative path, and then add the file that we want to actually run. This works actually. I tried running this. If you look at it, so this index.js is able to get the filter argument and build and get the filter argument. I'm just still working on passing that into the variable expansion for the binding GYP. If you guys have any other better ways of doing this, let me know. But this is where I am.
I think you don't need all this infrastructure. Like, I think you can just do this with npm test because if you say npm test minus filter, right, okay, then this npm config filter will be available in like the index.js, right? And so while that does not fix your compilation, so it doesn't reduce the number of files that it compiles, it does reduce the number of tests that it runs. So, and for speeding up the building of the tests, you can build them in parallel with the following command line. So if you look at the chat, you can say like make flags equals minus however many processors you have times 2. And I don't know if it's make flags or make ops, so I always just add them both. And then if you run npm test with these flags, then it'll build that many at a time. So it's not as elegant as, you know, picking which ones you want and don't build any of the C++ source code for the rest. But it's still pretty fast, especially if you have a computer that has like more than one processor, which most of them do nowadays.
This the J argument is for the number of processors, right? If you have 16 processors, then I think core. If you have 16 core, okay.
Yeah, if you have like whatever 16 hardware threads, right? Or actually, if you have 8 hardware threads, you would say something like 16. If you have 16, you would say 32, right? Because you always want to have a bunch of them standing by to launch, right? And so to maximize CPU utilization. So then you can get a pretty big boost with this, but the filter is still a good idea because the tests take quite a while, and if you're just interested in that one test, then it's good to have like this filter argument. So I think as a first step, I think if you could add the filter argument to like just the regular test command, right, and then process the npm config filter environment variable inside index.js, and basically splice the list of tests, because we create a list of tests in index.js,
Yep.
right? And so if you could splice that list according to the filter, then that would be a huge step forward already. And together with this, you know, it may save you all this work of trying to, you know, build up this whole infrastructure of a second binding.zip and all that. If we find that it's slow even after that, then we can start looking at filtering the sources. And honestly, I think filtering the sources should also work with the existing binding.zip, though it may be quite a like an exercise in circumventing zip at that point.
Does zip prevent us from doing like an incremental build? Because like
usually if you just type npm test, it'll just blow away like the build directory and it'll start from scratch.
You can do an incremental build by doing the build command instead of rebuild. But the problem is if you modify like the header file, then everything is considered changed.
Yeah, so exactly.
It compiles everything. So,
yeah.
Because we had discussed, like we had a meeting, Deepak and I, we had a meeting to sort of go through the whole testing infrastructure and how everything works and whatnot. So like the end goal of this was to be to only compile the individual CC for the test, as well as construct a binding that's only needed for that one test.
Right.
Yeah, I guess it is very optimal. I can't think of the word that I'm looking for. Like it's wishful thinking, I guess. There may be a lot of infrastructure change that would be necessary in order to do that. But I do know that like when I'm running, like when I'm developing, a lot of times I'm changing my package JSON and my index.js and my binding CC just so that I can run my individual tests.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. I found that an acceptable way around it is to use this make flags. And if you're working on tests only, then another good thing to have is Ccache. So if you do Ccache and you change a test, it'll only recompile that test because the header hasn't changed. And so for all other tests, the source file after pre-processing is identical to what it was before. And so Ccache will compute the hash of that source file and the command line and everything, and it'll find that it has already compiled this particular combination of things, and it'll just return the object file without recompiling. So Ccache can be super fast for tests, and without making any changes at all, you can speed things up fairly well if you're on a decent computer by using this make flags and make hops. You only need one of those variables, but I can never remember which one, so I always type them both. But yeah, if you want
test thing, you said that npm running npm test with the filter command will run only the specific test that we want.
No, not today. Not today, it won't. But what I'm saying is, if you do that, then sooner or later it's going to be executing test/index.js, right? And when it does that, sorry.
Oh yeah, yes, I agree with you. Yes, yeah.
So when it does that, then inside index.js, you can grab the npm config filter environment variable,
yes,
and you can decide on the final list of tests.
Yeah, yes.
So I guess what I'm saying is, for this particular, like for the index.js alone, you don't need this like extra directory with another binding JIP and all that. And then once we have that,
I think we're talking about two different filters potentially for two different use cases.
Yeah, I understand. Yes. What I'm trying to say is that as a first step, I think we should do the thing where it builds all the bindings, even though that's not our final goal, but it only runs the ones that are chosen. And then as a second step, we try to limit the bindings that we build. And then we take this like stepwise approach instead of like trying to just go at it, wholesale and fix everything at the same time, because that may end up being quite a branch.
Yes. So yeah, we already know that there are two steps, right? Like I was when we had discussion with Kevin. So we know that there are two steps, right? One is the test, another one is the compilation, right? So the test step is we know that is easier because we have written a test script in the index.js, so we can modify it to just filter out and run that one particular test. But the compilation is what we were like.
And I think, I mean, since he's already started looking at that, I would say let's close out on that before saying go do something different, right? Like they're both useful. So since Deepak's halfway through this one, I think it'd be interesting to see where we get, because I think I can see like it's basically like a lot of times I want to like not build at all. But that's kind of separate. But if you are going to build, I can see the use case where it's like, yeah, I only want to build the one test that I'm working on. And if you could just, kind of like today, I can go in and easily edit the index.js to splice things and stuff. And that's where we could do a better job of having options to let you not have to edit. But I think it would be interesting to have the similar ability to say, I want to splice down that I guess it's the binding.jip list.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, so how do you get a filter in there that says like, I just want to build these 5 things or something, and then.
Yeah. Okay. Honestly, I think the ideal situation would be if we didn't have files which contain references to other files. So ideally, we could decide. We could have like the directory structure alone that tells us what we need to build, right? And then a filter to say ignore parts of the directory structure, and that's it, right? Because right now we have the list of things in the index.js, right? And we have the list of like init this, init that, init the other thing, in like binding.cc, right? So ideally we'd have neither of those, right? Because like, for example, let's say I want to build 3 things, right? Now you need to construct a custom binding.cc, right? Because it should have like init this, init that, init the other thing, and nothing else, right?
So are you suggesting like a separate directory for each test, and each test has a snippet that gets pulled into the
I'm not 100% sure what the structure should be, but I do know that not having this global information about what tests we have, or having it in like 3 places, index.js, binding.cc, and the file system, right, it makes it difficult to construct like custom test loads.
Yeah, that was one of my thoughts when like we were saying like the filter is going to be the .cc file. It's like, You know, how do you tie that back to the test you actually have to run, which is the .js file?
And there might be platform implications for that, right? Because if you forward declare like init abracadabra, right, but then you don't provide init abracadabra anywhere, you know, Linux may not complain because Linux has lazy symbol resolution, but Windows might complain. It might say cannot build binding.node because init abracadabra is undefined, right? So you know, that's why we should not have this like init this and init that and init the other thing, you know. But that may be difficult because, well, you know, aside from creating like a shared object for each test, if we want to have all the tests in one shared object, that may not work, you know. So I don't know the whole story, but you know, one of the implications of trying to do one at a time might be that each one will have to be like its own binding.node, you know. So yeah, I mean, this is something that you can explore.
Is that an issue? Like if we had a
no,
separate,
that's fine.
Say, what if we had a separate directory for each? I guess it's though that building a whole bunch of bindings is going to take even longer, right? So we're going to make that worse rather than better.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, that's a good point, because if we have like a binding.zip for each test, then there's no way you can say make flags, because it always only compiles one file, and you'd have to have like an overarching make job that runs like, you know, 16 directories at the same time. But now you're talking about like custom make files and stuff. So yeah, that may not be the solution.
But could we have
on the other hand, since the binding.zip already lists all the files, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, instead of having like, you know, binding.node source is equals long list of files, right? We could have like you know, object.node and typed array.node, but we have them all in one zip file, right? Because if we do, then, and I might be wrong about this, it's worth an experiment, perhaps, then it's still one make file, right? And so it's just multiple targets, but make knows how to parallelize targets. So we don't lose the ability to use make flags to run multiple jobs, but at the end we have multiple .node files.
Right, but I'm more like forgetting the, you know, if you got 100 core machine, you can do it all in parallel. If you're doing it, if we're going to make the actual work much bigger, I wonder if there's something in between. Like if we structured it so that every test had its own directory and had which files it needed, but then there was a step that actually, like, you know, kind of like we now have for the index, which basically goes through and builds the, you know, builds up what's going to be run automatically.
Yeah.
There was a step that actually, you know, parsed the directory tree and pulled out from some file, like the things that need to go into the binding.zip, right?
Yeah.
And then if you had that, you could actually, it might be interesting because you could dynamically limit that to say, oh, well, okay, I only want to pull in the files that this particular test or these 3 tests have told me that I need.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Are you talking about like generating binding.zip?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's the ultimate solution. Yeah, is to just generate binding.zip based on the contents of the directory. Yeah.
Right. And that way you could say, okay, well, I want these 3, and it'll build you. And so if you then repeatedly just do those 3, you should end up just building what you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think you would need to dynamically generate binding.zip, because you could use some process expression to generate the build sources. Right?
Yes, that's a good point. So for example, let me think. Okay, but how do you deal with binding.cc then?
That's the one that would need to be generated.
Okay.
Yes.
I was thinking you need to generate something that has.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. Yes, I think, Kevin, I think you nailed it. So okay, so you have the environment variable, right? The environment variable can be used as the value of the sources thing, right? Assumedly, I'm not 100% sure, right? You may need to process it or something so that it results in a string that zip likes. but basically you can use the environment variable as the sources thing, right? And then the binding.node target depends on a target that generates the binding.cc. So one of the inputs to binding.node is a generated file, and JIP knows how to do that.
Right.
And then you solve the unresolved symbol thing, right? You've picked your sources, and you can use the same npm config filter thing to also pass into index.js.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
basically
cool.
can give it the name of the directory in terms of like, these are the directories that I want to run, and build whatever is needed just for those.
Yeah, and in fact, since the filter thing, since the filter thing is coming in from the environment anyway, its default value might just be like, you know, ls tests, you know, as a list. And then you know, having a filter specified, you know, like if filter is not specified, then filter is equal to _ ls tests, you know, and then the list comes from tests, if not specified otherwise by the user. And then, you know, and then building all the tests is just a special case of building some of the tests.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, we already have some logic which parses the directory to, you know, build the tests as the default in some way. It would just need to be a little different, and then it would, you know, look in all the directories and.
Yeah.
Does that, Deepak, you following what we're thinking?
Yeah. Yes. One of the things I heard is that, like, I think even Kevin brought this up previously. Binding.cc is something that we should be templating in case we are trying to, you know, we cannot include this binding.cc, which is there originally, because it would miss symbols, right? So we have to have a custom binding.cc. So that is one thing I heard from Kevin, but Gabriel was bringing up some things in between, like the binding see, JIP is somehow supporting this already. Is that what I heard?
Yes. So basically, when you're building a target with JIP, some of the source files for that target can be generated, right? So you can create a target that is not like a C++ target. It's a target of type none.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, let me show you.
Okay, let me show
I use this in one of my projects. Activity node. Geez, it's been so long I forgot how to type it. All right.
You're not sharing if you.
No. I'm not yet ready to share.
Okay.
Let me just grab the binding.jip, put that on screen, and now I think I'm ready to share. Let's see if I may. Share screen, entire screen, share. Okay, so now y'all can see this, hopefully. And you go to here, and so this is IOtivity node JIP file. So let's see, no target defaults, doesn't matter. Target conditions doesn't matter. Targets, right? So the name of this target is CSDK, right? This target builds like a C library, right? Using like a completely different build system, right? So you can see that the type is none, even though the result is a shared library. I said that the type is none, and then instead of having sources, it has actions. See, and then the action is like build scripts, build csdk.js, right? And so the only way you can tell it what to expect is via this inputs and outputs, and this is all like the outputs is a directory called IOtivity installed, right? So basically what you're saying here is that there's a target by the name of CSDK, right? And in order to create this target, you perform this action right here. And you know that this action has completed successfully when this file appears, right? This file can be a directory, can be whatever. And in order to complete that action, you run this script. So this is like a custom build step, right? And so then you go to see, these are other. This for example generates source files. This is another sort of supporting target, right? You have generate constants, and what does it do? See, again, it doesn't have sources, but it does have outputs, and the output is generated /constants.cc, right? And so how do you generate this file? Well, you have like two actions, right? First, you need to have IOtivity installed present, so it depends on the presence of that directory. And second of all, you run this generate constants.js script, which will ultimately create this file, right? And then finally, you have another one of these for generate enums. See, and notice how these depend on CSDK, right? Because this command here needs files from IOtivity installed, right? And so you have to declare that as a dependency. And so these two things depend on CSDK, and then this thing also depends on CSDK. So we have three dependencies on CSDK. And finally, this is your target. You have the sources, right? And then you have these dependencies, right? And so you know that when these sources get created, see the sources here listed are generated constants.cc. This file doesn't exist. This file is not part of the repository. It is generated by one of these previous targets, right? So you have generated constants CC, generated enum CC, and generated function CC, right? These files are created by these targets up here, which in turn need this target to work, right? And so all of these dependencies are listed down here, meaning that those targets get run first. So you're telling JIP, like, you know, don't run this target until these are complete, because you know that this target needs these files, which do not exist until these targets are complete. So in our case, this here would be binding.node, and then you would have like a generated /binding.cc, which is created by a target that binding.node depends on, and so is listed in its dependencies. So it wouldn't be as complicated as this, but it would have at least one dependency which has one of these like actions instead of sources and stuff and flags and all that. It would be a target of type none, which has actions, inputs, and outputs.
Right. We can have like a JavaScript file that would go through and build the binding.cc based on whatever filters we've told it or not.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And we would be using existing JIP infrastructure.
Right. That makes sense. It does require a fairly, you know, sizable refactor of the test directory, but I think that would be worth it for the.
Yeah. 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 And honestly, whenever I deal with JIP, I always go back to this file, because in this file, I basically used every possible feature and misfeature and bug that JIP has. So, yeah, do
you want to paste the link to that in the chat so that Deepak can grab it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
And you better grab it now, because it will, when we close the chat or the conference will go away.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gabriel.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, so that sounds like an interesting way to sort of solve some of the issues you were talking about there, like in terms of how to filter it. And
yep.
Anything more we should talk about on that topic?
Yes, if you could push your code, Deepak, that'd be great, so that we can start taking a look.
Yeah, let me.
Okay, I'm just going to go back then to, we can see if there's any other issues we should talk about. This is the one, I think, right. So we are in, let's go to Node. So this one I'll just mention, I spent a good amount of time trying to look at, there's still some intermittent failures, like not super common, but like, you know, over the last, I don't know, what's today, the 17th? So over the last month, 3 or 4 failures that looked pretty consistent, you know, different platforms. This one, I think here, this one I think was related to an issue that was in core and V8, this new no-op thing. I found another issue, but these 3, you know, we see failing tests running after that particular test. I've been trying to narrow it down to say, like, is it actually something in the test or not? I think I've seen similar problems in other places, so I'm not convinced like there's anything in that particular test that's causing the problem. If you look at the stack trace, most of what I'm running into is this global handles you know, and it kind of looks to me like we're getting corrupted memory somehow, like whatever this list that's being maintained in terms of the global handles, it's corrupted somehow because we're getting these, you know, the V8 basically saying, hey, there's something wrong here. I moved over to 16 just to try and avoid any noise that might exist in master. Still can recreate it. But what I haven't been able to do is like find a test which looks like it's the smoking gun. I'm now currently trying to work through the test list. Like if you just run that the thread safe function, I can't recreate it. But it's kind of one of those ones where like, and similarly, if I chop through the list and I remove enough, it doesn't happen. But then if I put back the ones I've removed and chop out a different set, it's like, I can't say removing any particular test in particular removes the problem, right? Because I say, oh, okay, I removed this test, it didn't happen. So then I add some other tests back and don't include that test, and it still happens, right? Like, so you know, it's kind of like, yeah, I can remove a test, it doesn't happen, but then I can also see it happen without that test through other combinations.
Hard to pinpoint.
Yeah, so I'm still, you know, I don't know. I may get to that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, the fact that we run all our tests in a single binary, you know, can make the tests like non-orthogonal, because, you know, you have garbage collection left over from a previous test, and then if that fails, then you crash during a subsequent test and all that. Like,
right.
We did do this like promise thing. I think we've got that by now, right? Where you wait for one test to finish before you start another test, right? And then we did get some kind of sort of determinism that way, but it's still not 100%, because the garbage collector can run anytime, and it is only one process that runs all the tests, and so one test can pollute the process for subsequent tests.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that you're running into these issues.
So that's where I've tried to exclude all sorts of things. Like we load two versions of the same.
Yes, even
the same thing. I was wondering if maybe symbols would collide or something.
We did add the hide symbols though, right? Like we did add the visibility equals hidden, didn't we? To our
so I haven't found anything like that's something I tried to exclude. So I actually only ran one version. I could still make it happen.
Oh, yeah.
And I did find one place in the symbol test where we weren't using the test runner, but that didn't seem to make a difference either. I turned on verbose GC to see if anything like jumped out as being different, but that kind of looked the same. We've got some extra flags like don't do concurrent sweeping. I figured, well, maybe that's an option not tested as well by V8s, but I turned that off. That didn't make any difference. So I've tried all sorts of things to try and get that sort of, you know, as opposed to just all this code runs. So I'm still on that path, and maybe if that doesn't work, like, you know, I still have it's debug on, which is good, and it still happens, but I haven't turned off optimization. So I don't get exact info about why it, like, you know, where in the V8 code it's crashing.
What about like running with Valgrind? Is it easy to do? I
tried, no. You know, before, from the last one I ran with Valgrind, and like part of the problem is the thread safe function test hangs. But I basically what I did do is I can run Valgrind all the way up to the thread safe function test, the first one.
Yeah.
And it didn't report. I should check that it didn't report anything. I should strip out thread safe function itself and see that nothing was reported. But I ran it on a bunch of it, and I think it didn't report any issues.
Okay. Yeah, sounds
but
like
it's
fun.
But that's in the single run, doesn't necessarily going to get it for you thing, right?
Right. Oh, I see. Okay. So this isn't even 100% of the time, right? It's just
oh
like
no, yeah, no. It's like,
oh yeah,
only after 10,000 runs am I pretty sure that it's not happening.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, doing that with Valgrind, yeah, that'll be a career right there.
That's what I did with the other one, so I might have to fall back to those scripts and see, but anyway.
All right, okay.
No luck so far, but yeah, that might be, maybe I should fall back to that now because I've tried excluding a whole bunch of things with no luck.
Yeah.
And that might actually do it. I had scripts which basically ran and I could just let that run over the weekend or something.
Yep.
So, okay. I thought I'd just mention this, if you have a time to take a look and see if anything rings a bell or whatever, but like, I don't really have a test to, like I've tried different things and I think I've seen not as often. It seems to most consistently happen after this context one. But I think I even had a combination where it seemed to fail with a similar problem loading the library itself. Like they all seemed related to creating a reference. Like this sort of this call stack of creating this new reference and having it then being like in the global handles doing something. Like it always crashes around the global handles. And usually somewhere in the in the stack is like create me a reference to something, but beyond that I've seen it in a few different places. So we'll plug away. If you have a chance to take a look at any of the stack traces or anything that thinks, and I don't know if anybody really knows what this global handles bit is related to or what it's doing.
Yeah. I can only imagine that it refers to persistent references, because I think we have, if I remember correctly, we stopped using like V8 persistent and we use V8 global now because you get that free destruction at exit or at GC. You don't have to like how before you had to what is it you had to do in the destructor? You had to like reset. That's right. You had to reset in the destructor, right? Like if you store the persistent as an instance member of a larger class, then you always had to write a destructor that would like reset it. But with globals, you don't have to do that because it does it for you. And it's like the 99.99999% use case is where you want it gone and reset when it gets destructed. And so I believe at some point in core we switched to using globals, and so that's probably why it's in V8 global.
Is that a recent change or?
Not so recent. I don't know honestly what the timeline is, but I do believe we made that like within like the last 2 years.
Okay, well, 2 years is a long time. Yeah, no, I was thinking if it was in the last month or two or something like.
No.
Because we were clean. We were clean on Valgrind, right? On a very, very long run, with lots of things when we fixed the last issue. This one seems, and it's one where it's really not like in the CI. It's really not that common, right? Like we're talking 3 times in almost a month.
Right.
But it is fairly repeatable in the if you run 10,000 runs, it pretty much happens for sure.
Right.
So
when you run this, do you just run with like latest 16.x and then you just like basically while true semicolon do npm test semicolon done?
I'm doing it like 100 in parallel.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, but so basically, actually, 100 in parallel.
It may make a difference, right? Because if your CPU is at 100%, the thread timings might be different than if you just run a single process, right? So like under CPU pressure, the thread save function may behave like in some unexpected way because it cannot schedule the threads as it would when there's no pressure on the CPU. So the fact that you're running it in parallel may actually be, what's bringing it out, which is great.
There are 150 cores on the machine though, so.
Oh, okay.
I'm just running it on the big machine I have so that I can get more through in a shorter amount of time. So I don't think there's going to be any more pressure than on a regular machine.
I see. Okay.
Although it might still be somehow related to that because, sometimes other people run things on machines and this seems to come in, sometimes seem more frequent, although that could just be bad luck or good luck or whatever, right? So.
Yeah. Wrong phase of the moon.
Exactly. Like today, because sometimes sometimes like within the first 1,000 you get one. Sometimes it seems to take much longer, but
Okay.
anyway, I thought I'd
Wow.
mention this one. We don't have too much more time, but if you have thoughts, I'll get people thinking about it. If you have any suggestions of what to try out, let me know.
Another thought is, try to maybe try to like remove some of the wrappers. Like, I know it's pretty vague, but I mean, if you just run the core tests, do those ever fail? Like, like if you just run like the node core tests, because if it is thread safe function, then we have pretty much the same tests in core, but without the extra C++ code, right? So
Right.
that might be sort of like an indicator that it's also happening in core. Though because I mean core tests are flaky too, right? It's just I don't know if these are. So if you run like make test JS native API and make test node API, then if those ever crash, then that's a good indication that it is in an API and it may or may not be node add-on API.
Yeah, that's true. I could try running the core ones to see if that's.
Yeah. If it goes deeper than that.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. And I was also thinking maybe trying like an earlier version, like is it something we've added in the test lately? Although that could just be, hey, we added something that then caused it to hit the area, right?
Yeah, ask for more cores. You never have enough cores, and you can run all these scenarios.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we're running low on time. We only got 5 minutes. Is there any other ones in particular people want us to talk about?
I have a quick. Oh, sorry. You go.
Quickly, my PR for the add cleanup hook.
Yep.
I finished your review comments of adding the guard and adding the hook to see if it failed.
Okay.
So that's ready to be looked at.
Okay, thank you. I'll take a note to go back to take a look at that. Any others?
I think that after we had the Kevin PR, we can make a new release.
This particular one, 1014?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like it's been.
Make some more. We made the last release 1 month ago.
Okay.
So yeah, we had some fix now, and I think that we can prepare for this new release.
Okay, that sounds good. I wonder about this one, 927. Is it worth trying to get that one into?
Yeah, maybe this PR issue. What I see is that recently reviews basically on the docs, so maybe Gabriel can take a look again so that we can say if it would be better if we can get it in the next release.
Okay, so maybe Nicola, if you want to open an issue proposing the next release and the issues we should include in that, we can have people add stuff there too potentially.
Yeah, and everybody can add some things that we can that we need to make the release. Okay, I will do later.
Sounds good. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I saw on the node repo some podcast about promises then and someone that argues that maybe it's not a necessary feature. So I don't know, maybe we need to discuss about this. I don't know what is your understanding.
Is this one or a different one?
It is this one.
Yeah, we have two paragraphs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one he closed, but this was the first one.
Okay.
And it's basically adding an API method to call the then and catch property methods off of a promise, from my understanding. And I think it's kind of weird. I don't necessarily think it needs to be an actual API function. Just because it calls the, I think it might be better if you go to the files changed, maybe the README, to show how he documented it. But we are almost out of time. But yeah, this one can be, I share this last opinion here, that it should be a userland code. Like you can make a userland library to do this.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think Anna says it best. I mean, you can just retrieve like the then property of the promise, and that's it. So, and then and then just call it and then pass it a function. Yeah, there's no reason to. This is not something you cannot do without Node API. So, I mean, yeah, userland definitely. Like if somebody wants to make a library for that, then so be it. But I don't think this needs to go into core.
One thing from my previously changed request is that current implementation requires the promise to be native promise from the V8 implementation. But if we are going to implement, like say, Node API promise, then I would believe it will have to be work with userland downable, like to say, Bluebird or any other thing.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, at that point, you're absolutely right. I mean, if we make this like promise specific, then the JavaScript world is full of implementations of what happens when you call .then, right? And not all of them are made by the engine, right? Yeah. So this thenable is much larger than just a native promise. Yeah, and now how do we distinguish? Like if we use like a V8 specific API to access the then that API doesn't work on on what looks like a plain object that just happens to have a then property.
Right.
Yeah,
whereas
that's
the
an
other
excellent
approach
point. Yeah.
of getting the method would work, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then at that point, you don't need an API for that. You already have like an API get property.
Okay. Well, maybe we're at time, and I gotta jump off. But if we can continue to discuss in the issue, that makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks for everybody's time, and we'll see you in GitHub and next week.
Yep.
All right.
Talk to y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye.